if you're selling B2B, the odds are your clients are either on the other end of a cold email or the other end of a LinkedIn direct message. Now, which one actually gets the most responses? Which one is actually going to grow your pipeline and get meetings booked into your calendar? I've tested both at scale and at volume, and I'm going to be running you through where you might want to actually place your focus in terms of getting those sales calls booked into your calendar. And I've actually personally sent tens of thousands of emails and LinkedIn messages for myself, for my business, and for my clients. And I'm going to run you through the pros and cons of LinkedIn outreach and the pros and cons of email outreach. And then to conclude at the end, what you might want to be focusing on moving forward. And this is the exact strategy that I use for my clients to generate 3 to 5 meetings on a weekly basis using both LinkedIn and email. So with that being said, let's get straight into it. So before I actually jump into the pros and cons of email to begin with, a lot of people say cold email's dead, and this could not be further from the truth. So just to show you, one of my clients who is a SaaS company, they're a pretty small company. The company headcount is around 10 employees, and they literally just use cold email to go and generate revenue for their business. And they're targeting global multi-million-dollar businesses all the way up to billion-dollar businesses in the EU, the US, and Australia and New Zealand. And we literally have generated $85,000 in sales off 144 qualified meetings, and we only ever used one cold email inbox. And there's loads of other fancy things you can be doing, like setting up instantly campaigns, and it does get quite overwhelming. But once you've got a solid ideal customer profile like this company did, and we reached out to the right types of people, obviously the target is a lot more specific than just companies doing 10 million to 1 billion plus. That is when you can start generating some real results like this. And this is literally off just one email. Imagine scaling that up massively. So the pros and cons of email are you can send emails at absolute scale. So you can be sending 1,000 plus emails on a daily basis. The cost to actually get it set up is relatively cheap compared to, paid ads on, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever platform you choose. Everyone has email, and it's just the quickest to get set up, especially if you know what you're doing. And the cons are the reply rates are generally low, and the deliverability is at risk. So especially with email providers like Google, they've really tightened up their spam filters at this point in time. So you've got to make sure you've actually set up the infrastructure. And it is harder to build trust. So when you send someone a cold email, like they don't know who you are, they haven't seen your face, they haven't seen you talk, they haven't seen anything about you apart from if you've got great copy, you might actually get a response. So it is hard to build trust. And a direct pitch is often required. Obviously, the reason why you're reaching out is because you want to have them on a call or to trial with you, or at least respond. So you're going to have to do some sort of direct pitching rather than if you're doing other forms of outreach, you might not have to do a direct pitch. And the pros and cons of doing LinkedIn outreach is pretty much 90% of B2B marketers use LinkedIn for lead generation and sales. So it's not just a hiring platform, and it's not just for you to go and moan about your boss and how shit your boss was or whatever. People are using this for lead generation and sales. And the reason being is because 80% of those people on LinkedIn are decision makers, and there's over 1 billion users on the platform now. And LinkedIn DMs, if someone's actually got LinkedIn, they get seen 2 times more than cold emails. And the response rate is, especially in my experience, is a lot higher on LinkedIn because you've got LinkedIn on your phone. You might have it open on your laptop. You might have it open when you're just about to finish up a meeting or about to go on to a meeting. You might just have a quick look at it. And LinkedIn also gives you notifications. So it usually converts 5 to 15 messages into calls, and then email usually around 2 to 5%. So just the pros and cons of emails are the obviously higher response rates. People can actually trust you more because they can quickly go over to your profile. They can see where you went to school if you've got that, or where you went to university. They can see a bit about you. Like within about 2 minutes, they can actually look to see, okay, do I trust this person? You can be more casual and conversational because it's almost like texting someone on WhatsApp or Facebook. And leads can see your content over time, which builds more trust. But it is harder to scale. You've got risk of only sending 20 to 30 DMs per day per account, and only 20 to 30 connection requests per day. So obviously email can scale a lot quicker. And not everyone's actually on the platform and they're using it regularly. So those are the sort of pros and cons. But going back over to email, so if you actually want to send 1,000 emails per month, what are the results that you can typically look to get? So it's roughly around 1 to 4 meetings a month. And this is obviously going to change depending on what sort of industry you're in, how good you are at copywriting, what's your infrastructure looking like to make sure that you can actually land in the inbox. There's so many different things to be thinking about, but this is just a ballpark figure. So, so if you send 1,000 emails, you're probably going to get 1 to 4 meetings per month. And, if you actually break the numbers down, so if you send out 1,000 emails, 1 to 2% will actually go and reply. So that's 10 to 20 replies, and then booking those people in. So you've still got to book them in. 10 to 20% of those will actually turn into meetings per month. But on the other hand, if you look over on LinkedIn, if you want to send 1,000 DMs, it's obviously going to take you a longer time because you can only send 20 to 30 DMs per day and only connect with 20 to 30 people per day. So it's going to take, 4 to 8 weeks. But the actual metrics on this are a lot higher. So typically you're going to get around a 10 to 20% reply rate. That's if your copy's terrible and you have no idea really what you're doing. With my clients, it's a lot higher than that because we're a lot more strategic. And then, you're probably going to get 100 to 200 replies off those 1,000 forms of outreach. And then meetings booked, 10 to 30% of those replies will actually turn into meetings. So that could be 10 to 60 meetings per month. So you've just got to weigh it up in your head. Is time on your hands? And can you be a bit more tactical with your outreach? Maybe you would just want to focus on LinkedIn. But if you really just want to ramp things up and reach as many people as possible, you would do email. So I'm going to break down the cost of email and then the cost of LinkedIn. So I'm just pulling out ballpark figures here. So just to safely send 1,000 emails a month. So if you didn't know, your daily limit per email inbox is around 30 to 50 emails per day. So you need to consider that when you're actually thinking, okay, do I want to send 1,000 emails? Do I need to send 20,000 emails a month? Whatever that is. So I'm just going to break down the numbers for 1,000 emails. So the cost is probably going to roughly add up to about $118.20 or $120 per month USD if you're actually going to set everything up correctly. So you're probably going to need a tool, a cold email sending tool like Instantly, where it's literally just for one account, it's $99 a month. And that is going to enable you to send mass emails out to people. So, if you were to do 1,000 per month, that's going to take you quite a lot of time, especially when you've got to follow up with them 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then you're going to need the email account. So one inbox is going to set you back around $7.20. You're going to need another domain because you don't want to burn your normal domain. So you need a false domain to basically actually go and do all of the outreach. False sounds like a dramatic word, but you just need a different domain to your own domain so you don't ruin your own domain. So that's going to set you back $12. And then the domain setup and your warm up. So you need to warm up your emails over the span of about 2 weeks. Instantly does that and it has that tool for free. So if you add it all up, it's going to cost you around $118 a month. And that's if you just want to really ramp things up and send 1,000 emails per month. But if you want to go and do LinkedIn outreach, and the beauty of it is if you want to do this and do 4 to 8 weeks of outreach to reach out to 1,000 people in the DMs, you can do it for free. Like you can literally just go and send people messages for free, same as email. But if you want to ramp things up and actually go and use some sort of automation tools like Expandy or Prosp, or there's a bunch of different tools to use. Obviously the price fluctuates, but it's around $59 to $100 a month. And you're going to need some sort of contacts database. So you're going to probably need LinkedIn Sales Navigator to go and create all of the contacts that you want to reach out to, or you've got your own database pulled from Apollo or Lusher or something like that. So that's probably another, $60. So that's just something to consider if you really want to ramp up your LinkedIn outreach. So going back to the email here, like I said, it's going to set you back, $120, but you're going to need leads to reach out to. So you're going to need someone's name, company name. You're going to need someone's email, website, all this information. It's probably going to set you back $50 a month by using a tool like Apollo, where you're going to get a certain amount of credits to use. Most people can get away with using the basic plan or the professional plan. Or if you've seen my other video about how to use Apify to go and scrape people's contact information from businesses, such as their first name, last name, email, LinkedIn URL, you name it, verified emails, you can pretty much do that at no cost using Apify. Obviously, it's a bit of a process, but most people use Apollo. So those are just some things to consider. And you're probably thinking, okay, which strategy should I use? So I've just sort of compiled this up into one easy table for you to understand. So when to actually use what? So the scenario, the best channel, and why you should actually use that channel to go and do outreach. So for example, if you're looking to just do mass cold outbound and you want to go and actually scale it fast, you would obviously be using email outreach. And if you're actually selling a high ticket service, for example, both would obviously work, but in my experience, just using LinkedIn can be a lot better because you can build a lot more trust on LinkedIn, especially if you're a founder reaching out to other businesses. People can actually see that you're a credible person if you've got your profile set up correctly. There's loads of other nuances, but generally you can build a lot more trust with LinkedIn. And if you want reach, obviously you're going to need more contacts, but if you really want to ramp up the reach and you don't just want to send 1,000 emails, or you want it ticking over in the background, you would obviously be using email to go and do that. But if you want a quality reply, so if you are being tactical with your outreach and you're really pinpointing who you want to reach out to, and you want some really good quality replies, you might send someone over some sort of Loom video, you might send someone over to like a landing page or over to your company profile on LinkedIn. There's loads of other things you can do. If you want that quality reply, I would be using LinkedIn. So here, if you've got a small market, I'd probably be using both. So I'd be having email going on in the background and then using LinkedIn. But the best ROI combo is to basically have scale and the trust element there. So what you want to be doing is using LinkedIn to go and reach out to people on that personal level. You obviously still need to follow up with these people, and you would potentially have email running in the background. But what a lot of people don't do is when they're reaching out to people on LinkedIn, they should be following up on email as well. So there's different tactics that you can do. But essentially, I always recommend my clients to use LinkedIn as the main thrust and that first point of contact when reaching out to people, and especially when you're connecting with people and prospects on LinkedIn. Then you follow up using email to actually say, hey, I actually connected with you on LinkedIn for X, Y, and Z reason. And then you would still hit them with the email to remind them, hey, this is why I was connecting, this is why I was reaching out. So you can have a combination of the two. And then, aside from this combination here, I'd probably have another cold email sequence just running in the background if you really wanted to actually start doing the mass cold outreach and scale it fast and actually hit as many people as possible who are in a different sort of group to these people who are on LinkedIn. But there's so many different scenarios that you can run. But generally what we do for our clients is we use LinkedIn, and then we use email to obviously follow up with people, and that builds a lot more trust. And you've already connected with them on LinkedIn at a personal level, and you're using email just to top up, because not everyone is actually active on LinkedIn, but they are active on email. And if they're active on email and they're not active on LinkedIn, you've covered both angles there. So to wrap that up, there is pros and cons obviously to both ones, but if you've got a solid LinkedIn profile and you look credible, you've got a good personal brand going on, I would probably be starting with LinkedIn outreach. But if you haven't got anything like that set up, I'd probably be starting with cold email outreach just to gain a bit of momentum, get some meetings booked in whilst you actually work on your LinkedIn profile. But, if that some of your clients aren't on LinkedIn for whatever reason, they're just, that you're better off cold calling and doing emails, just use email. But if you, for whatever reason, know that your clients are probably going to be on LinkedIn as well as email, I would be recommending doing both. But, sometimes when you're doing outreach, you've really got to just focus on one platform. So whichever one sort of fits your business and your outreach mechanism, and just go off the data. If you've got better results reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and you've, instead of 60 meetings per month, you're getting way more than that, and you're actually reaching out to 1,000 people, then go ahead with LinkedIn, just stick with that. Similarly, I always speak to people who say that they're doing email outreach and they're getting way more replies than 1 to 2% reply rate, and they're getting way more meetings than 1 to 4. Don't fix it if it's not broken. If you can get 10 meetings a month or 20 meetings or 30 meetings a month doing cold email, just double down on that. Make sure that your lead list is a lot better. So wrapping that up, if you want some help with your lead generation strategy, just click that link below and you can get in touch with me. Peace.